Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health. And really, without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
Hey, Chim Chim, how about you quit calling me Chipwich?
Rude.
All right, welcome to episode 35 of Nerdery and Murdery.
I'm Zig with your nerdery.
I'm Geoffrey with your murdery. And this episode comes out on January 30th, so we're 1/12 into 2022.
1/12 of the way.
No sign of COVID going away, which sucks. I'm really kind of tired of this shit. Anyway, so I need to ask y'all to go ahead and pull out your billfolds because y'all owe me some money.
Okay.
Because this morning I went to go get y'all breakfast.
Thank you.
And so this is all your fault from this point forward.
It's my fault.
So
or our fault.
It was dark, and I'm driving down the road, and you know we have that big field over across the way.
Yeah.
And suddenly, out of the darkness comes 2 massive black feral hogs.
Oh, no.
Screeched on the brakes, smacked one.
Oh, no.
This fucker rolled 5 times on the road.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, he's dead. And then he got up and walked away. Cracked my bumper.
Yeah.
So got to get that repaired after Christmas.
It's a good thing that's all that happened. Those things are...
Yeah, that thing was solid.
Yeah.
I could not believe how solid that thing was. And it was 2 of them. And they were huge.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I got to get my bumper fixed now. So y'all got to pay for this because it was getting y'all's breakfast. So
Thanks for breakfast.
Sure, no problem. Happy to wreck my car for you.
I can tell you this, though, if it makes you feel any better, we ate some of that hog.
Not that hog, we didn't. Glad I could tickle William. Glad I could tickle William with tales of my car getting wrecked. So yeah, so that was.
I am so sorry.
Nah, it's all right. It is what it is. I'll file it under insurance. That's what we have insurance for anyway.
That's right.
It kind of shook me up a little bit, but yeah. So then I had to go get
5 times. Boo, 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 boo.
Yeah.
And it got up, gave you a dirty look, and walked away.
Yeah, it did. It completely looked at me and then walked away. It basically got up and went, go fuck yourself, and walked away. So anyway, back to the show. I was going to tell you, I've got some listeners' comments, which I wanted to read real quick because I think they're really cool.
Yes, please.
I had one listener that told me they preferred the nerdery over the murdery. They said, yeah,
You're welcome.
They said, yeah, I just can't listen to yours. Yours is too dark. Another told me that they rarely listen to podcasts, but they do not miss an episode of our show.
Awesome.
So I thought that was cool. And then the last one said, this was a comment we actually got on iTunes, is what a great show. Who knew I needed this in my life?
Aw, we need you too.
Yes. So, it's a good time to remind everybody, please do rate us on iTunes where you can. That's very, very helpful to us.
Yes.
It helps us get our contact out, our show out to other people so that they can find our content. It really, really, really helps us. It's free. So please, everybody go out there and do your 5-star rating and review today. Just takes a few minutes, not even that. And it's very, 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 very helpful to us. We appreciate that for all of our listeners.
Please and thank you.
So with that, I don't have anything else to talk about. How about you?
I do have a little piece. I had discovered this hip hop artist, RID, out of Germany in Hessen. It's mostly English language stuff. It's
Hess.
Hess.
It's not. I don't think it's Hessen, is it? Hesse.
Yes,
I think it's Hess.
I'm sorry.
No,
I don't speak of the German.
all I can do in German is swear anymore. So
right on. Okay. Zucken, mein Stucken.
I'm pretty much not going to.
Anyway, so I think this is a bit...
It's also Schwanstücken.
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 Sorry. Don't worry, German listeners.
Told you all I can do is swear.
I think this may be one of our listeners. If not, either way, it's really funny. It's kind of a bit, the RID thing, but I did include a link to video. Get it up. It's really hysterical, and I love it. And if this is the person I think it is, I love you, man. I miss you. Contact me. We'll get together. We'll talk.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to know who our German listener is as well. We've talked about it in multiple episodes.
Yes.
They are a very, very faithful listener, and they
Yes.
listen constantly. So
Yes, if it is you, RID, hit me up.
awesome. Cool. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So anything else, or you want to dive into the nerdery side of the show?
This is going to get pretty nerdy today.
Okay.
We're going to talk about an RPG system that we have used before. It's called Savage Worlds. So for the uninitiated, Savage Worlds is an RPG system from the early 2000s. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is some of the differences it is to other gaming systems. Whereas with Shadowrun, you've got the 6-sided dice, you determine how you go and everything else. With D&D, you've got the polyhedral dice. This does use polyhedral dice. But for the task resolutions, dice are rolled to determine the outcome of character actions and interactions in the game, as usual. Usually a trait die is rolled against a target number of 4. If the roll equal or exceeds the target number, the action succeeds, otherwise it fails. So how this basically boils down is your player characters, and significant non-player characters are known as wild cards. Now, a wild card has an extra dice, usually a D6. And their target dice, so say it's a D8 or a D4 or something, they're rolling it against 4. So you only roll 2 dice at any time. You're 6-sided. And if either one of those succeeds, that's how you get a...
You're rolling against 4, like Shadowrun target number of 4? Okay.
Well, yeah, the target number would be 4.
Okay, gotcha.
So this roll may ace as normal, which means it doubles. So the dice explodes. So on a D8, or let's say a D6, I roll a 6. I get to re-roll that dice, and if it comes out above 8, I get to ace it, so it gives me bonuses to the attack. The actual results roll in addition. Wild cards also receive a number of bennies. It's slang for benefits, usually in chip form. You get these, so if you have a failed roll or something, instead of using pools or anything like that, what you do is you turn in one of those bennies and you get to re-roll that failure.
Didn't they have bennies in the Firefly role-playing game too?
Yes.
So I wonder if that's kind of based loosely off Savage Worlds.
I think the Firefly is basically based around Savage Worlds. Okay. I think there may even be a Firefly Savage Worlds box set, but I could be wrong. But you can re-roll things that mess up, but the thing I think is really interesting, and it's basically based around the idea. The first iteration of this game was like a Deadlands, so it was almost like a steampunk 1880s. So they wanted to do it kind of cowboy style. So they used poker chips for the bennies, and to determine who goes first, instead of rolling against the table, they deal out cards. Like playing cards. So an initiative is determined by a standard deck of playing cards with 2 jokers in it. Characters act in sequence according to the fall of the cards from highest to lowest. Tires are broken by suits in order from best to worst. It would be spades is the best, then hearts, then diamonds, and clubs. Jokers beat all other cards, and additionally, if you pull a joker, you get to go whenever you want. So you can basically hold your action.
I think we played two Savage Worlds campaigns.
Yes.
One was the World War II campaign.
Yeah, which was a lot of fun.
Which was based off Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
And then we played the Western one, which was based off Star Wars.
Yes.
Right.
We did end up playing. We ended up playing a one that was based around. What's the video game? With the vaults. Oh my God, I can't believe I can't.
Fallout.
Fallout. Yeah, we did one based around Fallout.
I don't think I played that one. I think I definitely didn't play that one. The one I really remember was the Western one, because I think you had a character that was a scientist that had a lab coat that you could roll a die and pull out of the lab coat the thing you needed.
Yes.
I think that was that game.
Yes.
That was a cool character.
I loved that character. I like to play scientists and weirdos.
Yeah. I remember mine was pretty much a gunslinger. He was a former Pinkerton agent and gunslinger. I remember that. Remember the Death Star was a big old hot air balloon.
Yeah, big hot air balloon. Working on a ghost rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, with the cards. So with the cards, how it works is you keep drawing out of the deck until a joker comes up, and then you reshuffle. You don't reshuffle until the joker comes up. So. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to put that out there as a first to kind of show the differences between it and Dungeons and Dragons and Shadowrun. And I'm sorry it took me so long to get to that note. I was scrolling. So Savage Worlds is a generic role-playing system, much like GURPS or oh my God, my brain is not working today.
Sure. Yeah, and I know GURPS. You've got several out there that are very generic systems.
The G20 systems.
Yeah, and some that are tailored specifically to certain genres or certain subject matters. But yeah, the Savage World is not alone in this type of world.
But it's kind of new, and a lot of people are using it. Fate is another system that people are liking to use. But you have to get...
I've got Fate dice.
Yeah, you have to get special dice for Fate. The game was written by Shane Lacey Hensley and published by Pinnacle Entertainment. The game emphasizes speed of play and reduces preparation over realism or detail. The game received the 2003 Origin Gamers' Choice Award for Best Role-Playing Game.
That's one of the things I like about, Savage Worlds, is like you said, the speed of playing.
Oh yeah,
because one of the game systems we played and I, of course, like the subject matter. It's the Star Wars role-playing game.
Yes.
I like it. I like being in that world,
Mm-hmm.
but combat is slow.
Character generation takes a while too.
Yeah,
With Savage Worlds, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, and that's what I really appreciate about the Savage Worlds is literally the speed of getting everything going, getting into the game. Combat is fast, the game is fast, and there's a lot less downtime because on some games, Shadowrun is even included in this. We have had to have our first gaming session spent around character generation.
Yeah.
You can do some of it beforehand, but you've got to do so much with the GM because the GM's got to be very versed in the characters.
Yep.
And you basically spend your first gaming session character generating.
Yeah, and in Savage Worlds is not necessarily like that.
Yeah.
You can spend everybody kind of has their idea, you get it together, and you can basically do it on the fly. So, and although Savage Worlds is a generic rules system, Pinnacle has released Savage settings. So, campaign settings are modules designed specifically for the Savage Worlds rules. These included Evernight, 50 Fathoms, Necessary Evil, Rippers, and Lowlife. Pinnacle also published setting books based on the company's earlier line, including Deadlands, Reloaded, as well as The Tour of Darkness, Necropolis, Weird War 2.
That's the one we played.
Yes. And beginning with 50 Fathoms, the majority settings released by Pinnacle feature a concept known as a plot point campaign. Mm-hmm. In such campaigns, a series of loosely defined adventure scenarios are presented, and a main storyline is also presented as plot points. And you can get these plot points and spin them like bennies. You get little side quests or savage tales expanding the scope of the campaign. This format kind of allows groups of characters to explore the game universe while playing through this setting. So basically what happens is you've got this overall setting, but you can also go off to the side, and it allows for longer play. You can get out of the, hey, this is, our main goal is to do this, but we can do all these little side quests off to the side, and it allows you to run for a long time. And it's a lot of fun to play. And you can explore the game universe.
It's like video games with side quests in them. I love those because Fallout being a prime example of one, you can really, really extend how long the game is if you go off the main storyline to the different side quests. I love the side quests. I think they're great.
Yeah, well, that's basically what they were doing. I think that's why we ended up doing that one Fallout conversion, and it didn't take long to put it together. I think Don, who we've discussed before, made little Benny counters that were bullets, and he made them out of shrinky dinks. I have never seen anything like it, and they were awesome. And then all our bennies were these shrinky dinks. We started out with poker chips. He's like, "Hey, I made these."
It's one of the things I've always appreciated about Don when he runs campaigns is he'll do little intricate things like that. Yeah. He'll give a little something little that's a piece of the game. Yeah. He's always loved making little miniatures for us, even though we didn't really use miniature maps. Yeah. He loved doing those, or making pictures of us for our characters.
Oh yeah.
I just always appreciated that with him, being our GM.
Don, if you're listening, we love you. You should come on with us.
He's not going to.
So a licensing system is in place. Electronic and book publishers can release materials for the Savage Worlds games, such as Savaged. Licensees are allowed to use a Savage Worlds mascot, Smiling Jack, logo on their product. Multiple PDF adventure scenarios are available using the licensing system, as well as settings related to that. Now, the development history. In 1997, Pinnacle published Deadlands: The Great Rail Wars. A miniature war game set in the Weird West. Hensley's Deadlands role-playing game. The rules were greatly simplified versions of the full Deadlands system, focusing on figure skirmishes.
Single finger?
Single
finger? I'll give you a single finger.
Yes, you will. Now, in 2003, the rules for the Great Rail Wars were revised and expanded into a generic system, the Savage Worlds. And at the Origins 2003, Savage Worlds was awarded the Gamer's Choice Award. They did do a main rule book, which was released in PDF, and in 2004, a print version. I'm sorry, they released the PDF in 2004 and the print version in 2005. And Great White Games began releasing rule expansions in the form of PDF files and self-contained miniature skirmish games. Deadlands Reloaded, a version of the game using Savage World rules, was released in 2006, and in late 2005, Pinnacle entered into agreement with WizKids to publish self-contained RPGs set in the worlds of Pirates of the Spanish Main, Rocket Man, and Mage Knight using the Savage World rules. Of the 3 licensees, only the Pirates of the Spanish Main RPG saw a release, and it was published in 2007. Now, Pinnacle released another licensed game, The Savage Worlds of Solomon Kane, in 2007. Now, they like to do a lot of the adventure stuff. They're not so much a D&D sort of thing, but it's basically set in offshoots of the world, like cyberpunk, steampunk and Weird West and Weird World War II. But they did release a Savage Worlds Deluxe, a hardcover expanding version of the rules found in the Explorers Edition. Now, the Explorers Edition is a little digest edition. I didn't include that. It's small. Don's is at my house in the TARDIS, where he can. It's easy to tab it, but it's 8 inches by. It's almost like a pulp magazine, kind of that size, which I think adds to it because it's that digest edition. It harkens back to the old pulp magazines, which is where they live. They like a lot of things from the 30s and the 40s, going back before that. In 2015, Pinnacle announced a series of supplements converting Rifts to the Savage Worlds. So that was the other one. That was the other one I couldn't think of. Yeah. Rifts was a generic role-playing system that was around for years. I played a bunch of Rifts back in the 90s. In 2018, Pinnacle released a new edition of the Savage Worlds Adventurer Edition, which is bigger. I still like the digest version. It's a great little book, and you can just thumb through it really quickly if you need actions. But again, it's not real rules heavy. That's why people like Savage Worlds.
Sure. I like any RPG that really is all about role playing.
Oh,
It's less about...
You get bennies for good role playing.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to have some structure to play the game, but a good role playing game is less about that structure and more about the players actually playing out the scenario and letting them go. And so that's
Spinning
something,
them up, watching them where they go.
Sure. That's something I appreciate about Savage Worlds because that's exactly what it is.
So in November 2020, Pinnacle announced Pathfinders for Savage Worlds, an adaptation of the setting of Paizo's Pathfinder role-playing game and serialized Adventure Path modules, beginning with the first Adventure Path, Rise of the Rune Lords. So they're kind of getting into D&D territory as well. And again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
No.
It might be a good introduction into D&D because D&D can be really rules heavy, as we have discussed before. It's better now than it was in 1987. But it's still pretty hardcore. That's
something that maybe we ought to consider doing at some point when we actually get a chance to game again. is really doing not just a Western for Star Wars, but actually try a Star Wars campaign using Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
Or even better, that Dark Side campaign that we tried that one time that was so much fun.
One-shot Dark Sides we did were great. We had so much fun with that.
Yeah, because we could just be totally evil, didn't have to worry about any consequences.
That's right.
That was a blast.
I played a Chiss.
And I played a Zabrak.
Right on.
So
character creation. I did want to kind of touch off this. So player characters are built using a point allocation system. So the game masters are encouraged to design non-player characters to the needs of the game rather than to fit the system. So characters in Savage Worlds are composed of a variety of statistics. These include race, traits, edges, hindrances, and sometimes powers. Now, with race, a character's race usually refers to their species, which may apply positives or negative modifiers to the characteristics. And into some of the role-playing, you really need, if you're playing a troll, let's say.
I like trolls.
I know you like trolls. You're going to have to play that a little differently than you would just a regular old human. You're going to have trouble fitting in places.
I'm sorry. Nobody can hear me blink right now when I'm just blinking. No shit.
Oh, yeah. We had a lot of fun with stuff like that. I can't even use this gun. Well, Use your pinky. My fingers won't fit.
I'll just beat somebody with the
it.
gun
I'm
then.
just beat somebody with it. So, like Pirates of the Spanish Main, this may instead refer to nationalities. In the case, nationality-based differences may occur in campaigns where certain skill specializations, edges, and hindrances are affected by cultural or technological differences, or are included to add flavor to the characters. For instance, in Deadlands Reloaded, a non-Chinese character may learn Chinese martial arts but cannot acquire and use its chi-based powers. In Weird War 2. Why is that so hard for me to say?
Weird World 2.
Thank you. American, British, or French soldiers have specialized.
Weird World War 2.
Yes.
There we go.
American, British, and French soldiers have special edges and hindrances to reflect their different nationalities and military cultures. Traits. Characters' traits are characterized by and rated by a single polyhedral dice. The more sides the trait is rated in, the better the character is at the trait, ranging from a D4, which is a 4-sided dice, is the lowest, to a 12-sided dice, or a D12, which is the highest. For example, a character with a strength trait of 10-sided dice, or D10, is stronger than a character whose strength rating is rated at a 6-sided dice. These are divided into attributes, which are inherent, and skills, which are learned. The 5 attributes used in Savage Worlds are agility, which is physical precision and speed, smarts, which is mental powers, spirit, which is willpower, and strength, which is physical power, and vigor, which is physical health. Attributes start at a level D4 and cost 1 point per additional level to go up. If an attribute would cost nothing at level 5, D12 would cost 4 points. The number of points assigned to spend on attributes is usually 5 points, but it can be more in certain game worlds. So basically, you get allocated points after the end of your session, and you can allocate those to leveling up your character. Much in Shadowrun, you don't have to level it up all at once. You do it in spits and spurts, which is another thing I like about this game. Again, D&D is a little restrictive in that you have to level up this way, and you can pick this skill or this skill, but it has to be in this skill tree to upgrade it.
And I agree with you. That's definitely one of the things that I think is limiting with D&D, and part of the thing that's so frustrating is leveling up in D&D gets very frustrating.
Yes.
Because, and I mean, I guess this is all the point of it, but just, I'm one of those people that I want it now.
Yes.
And everything I want seems to be the next level away, or even worse, 3-4 levels away.
3-4 levels away. So I gotta walk around killing kobolds for the next 6 months. Just to level up.
Killing rats, killing kobolds, killing little goblins. Yeah.
Attributes are also used to set the points cost for skills. So if your attribute is higher, there's a skill tree assigned to it. So to raise that skill, if the attribute is higher, it's less cost effective, or it's more cost effective. So if you want to do a bunch of mental skills, if your mental attribute is higher, the skill cost is less. The point cost doubles if the skill level exceeds the controlling attributes. Now I know we had that problem in Shadowrun. If your natural attribute is above this, the skill cost is going to be higher. So if a character has a smart level of 1, D4, and wants to buy a healing skill at level 2, it will cost 3 points. 1 point for healing at level 4, and 2 points for healing at a higher level, and so on and so on and so forth.
Well, and I understand that it's hard to level characters up. I mean, even in D&D, because I mean, realistically, you think about these characters have to fight and do things and train or meditate. And so I do understand, but
it lengthens the game. You don't want to have.
Well, and that's the thing. From a true gamer standpoint, I would rather be able to level up quicker and get to, I mean, to use a video game analogy, higher levels and higher bosses.
Yes.
Because that's fun.
Yes.
It's fun to go up against the big baddies and find the big loot at the end versus killing kobolds and rats and getting some copper pieces out of it. And it's just
Yes.
that gets boring
Hunting
very quick.
for a rumvarax poop.
Yeah,
so you
get copper.
Yeah, to get copper or gold if it got
True.
you some gold.
But yeah, so that's it. From a purely game standpoint, you should be able to level up quicker and easier to start to make things very interesting and very fun for the characters.
Now, in addition to attributes, a character has the following derived statistics. So you've got pace, which is ground speed, parry, which is the ability to defend oneself, toughness, which is resistance to damage, and charisma, the presence and charm. All of these things you need. Sometimes you need less of this and more of that. If you're going to be the face of the client contact or the bard of the group, you need a high charisma.
Sure. Counterpoint with trolls, you don't need a high charisma because you're not going to be the face, you're going to be the brute. And so you need a high strength.
Exactly. Now, some setting supplements add a fifth derived statistic, such as reason, which is problem solving, sanity, which is mental health, or grit, which is mental strength, to reflect the special needs of the game world. Now, I would assume that sanity would be based on Cthulhu. You need to have high sanity when you're opening these dusty old tomes that can drive you crazy by reading.
Sure.
So like in Fudge and Fate systems, the skills are broad and allow the characters to use them for a variety of related tasks. For instance, a character with fighting would not just be skilled in fighting with their bare hands, but also with melee weapons, which is restrictive in some other games. So yeah, the idea is if you know how to fight, well, yeah, I can pick up this bottle and hit a guy with it, and I'm going to be pretty good at that because I'm a good fighter. In a lot of other systems, I don't have hand-to-hand combat or armed combat. So I can hit this guy really great, but if I pick up a bottle and hit him with it, I'm at a disadvantage. Well, no, you shouldn't be.
Right.
Because you're a good fighter.
Well, and that's so I'm going to go back to the restrictive D&D when you have to have things like swimming and climb and things like that. And if you don't have those, you can't do or you're doing them at a heavy disadvantage.
Yeah.
But, some basic things should be allowed.
Yeah.
Climbing, a relatively easy should be okay. I understand if it's harder. Swimming should be relatively easy. But it gets into very tiny minutia of the things you're allowed to do because you don't have the skill. And that's Shadowrun kind of helps you with that a little bit because you can default to attributes and things like that. And then Savage Worlds, of course, even better because you can do different things. Shadowrun was a little restrictive in that you're exactly right. You had armed combat and unarmed combat. So if I wanted to hit with my fists and I didn't have unarmed combat, I got to default to something. That's kind of a little weird.
But you're just fine at hitting somebody with a bat.
Right.
Which makes no sense.
Exactly. Or I could pick up a gun and beat somebody with it and potentially use my arm. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong on that, but potentially use my arm combat skill. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate the broader aspect of Savage Worlds.
Yes. Yeah, you may also be able to identify and counter an opponent's fighting style is another thing in Savage Worlds that I do appreciate as well. It's like, oh, hey, I know this particular form of martial arts. That guy's using that one. I know what he's doing.
I know Kung Fu.
I know Kung Fu. I've never met Kung Fu. Is it a nice person?
Edit point. That's got to be edited out. Oh my God, that's got to be it. It's terrible.
Come on.
Terrible.
Okay, so they could also so your smarts you can figure out who is soldiers and nationality by their uniform and their rank insignia and locate and hire mercenaries and bodyguards if your smarts are high enough. Healing could be used to diagnose an illness and identify medicinal herbs or pharmaceutical drugs. Even though you're not that kind of healer, it's like, oh, hey, I know what that does. And then you go to specialize so you could prevent things like disease outbreaks, because I understand that there is a pandemic version of Savage Worlds that a lot of people have played that seems to be a lot of fun. So now we go to edges and hindrances. Now, characters are also customized with advantages and disadvantages known as edges and hindrances, whereas in Shadowrun they're called edges and flaws.
Right.
And again, you got modifiers for races and things in D&D. Edges and hindrances, unlike traits, are not rated with dice. Edges cost points and are based on the character's rank. Novice, seasoned, veteran, heroic, or legendary. Now, I want to say there's something really similar in that Firefly game, where it's novice, veteran, and big damn hero, which is my favorite.
Yes.
I love big damn heroes. And you're unlocked as the characters kind of level up. You can get a little bit better, which also helps your leveling in Savage Worlds. They're also grouped by type, which may, depending on the campaign or world, affect their abilities. So beginning edges can only be granted at character creation. So social edges affect interaction skills, combat edges affect the character's fighting skills, and leadership edges affect group or massed combat. Professional edges are related to the character's job or role and affect their career skills. Power, weird, or wildcard edges are supernatural. Paranormal or superhuman advantages and grant bonuses to powers. They may be available in mundane game worlds. And hindrances, characters' disadvantages. The great points are ranked as minor, which grants a character point, or major, which grants 2 character points. Now, and a lot of people think, well, why would I get any hindrances? Because they give you advantages in other places.
Sure.
Just like any
Just
game
like edges and flaws.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this edge because it's going to give me some bonuses, but that's going to give me negative points. So now I got to take some flaws to make up for those negative points, because you have to be at 0.
That's right.
At character creation. So I have to have some flaws to counteract.
Yes.
And it's in any game system that uses this type of bonus and negative on your character, it's to give your character some special things.
Yes.
But also understand that they are still people, creatures, characters, whatever, and they have to have flaws, and it has to be a balance, and it keeps characters from being too Billy Badass superpowered.
Yes.
Overpowered.
And it also helps in gameplay.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, with you, because if your character is insane, which I've played at least one, possibly more.
Excuse me. That would be all, sir.
No, the scientists are never insane. They're just quirky. But yeah, if you play a character who's insane, you get to play that, which I love. But you can also gives you bonuses in other areas, because I'm going to take that as a flaw, because I'm going to play that character that way anyway. I might as well get an advantage for it.
Sure. Primus he was uncouth. That was a negative.
Yes.
He couldn't read or write. That was a negative. And he was allergic to copper, which is a pretty common metal. So, so that was negative as well. You go over to my mage Jack. He had the flaw of wild magic, that when he would cast his magic, he never knew what was going to come out, because
only the combat spells.
Right. Only the combat spells, and they had to be rolled, and it could be anything.
And he had to announce them.
Yes, had to say them out loud. So I mean, those are the type of flaws you get. Some can be.
Did you ever hit what you were trying for?
Oh yeah. Every now and then. But that's the thing with those characters. It's fleshing them out, and it makes for interesting gameplay.
Yeah, it does. It does. It makes you want to play the game again. It's like, oh, this is going to be so much fun, even if you're getting, you're not making any money at the game, or even if it's a quote unquote loss in the loss column, it's still fun to play.
Yeah. And you could have flaws that are mild, minor, allergic to copper. Well, that's, even though it's a common metal and it's everywhere, I can pretty much avoid copper, except when fucking Barndoll would put copper pots on Primus's head. To major flaws.
Still funny.
This is still funny. To major flaws where you could have a character that's blind. And that's a major flaw. Or a character that is disfigured or is missing limbs. Those are major flaws and give you major bonus points. But that's going to be hindrance in gameplay.
Yes,
it is. So you get to play that. I think it helps with RPGing again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, which is basically what we advocate people do.
Yes.
We want them to get out and play these games because they're a lot of fun. It's Savage Worlds. It's fairly inexpensive. You can buy them as PDFs. Granted, you'll have to print them off or just use them on your laptop or tablet or whatever. I think some of these newer games like Fate and Fudge and Savage Worlds are bringing more people into the system and into the idea of sitting around a table and playing these games. Because for a lot of us, this stuff kind of went away. There were game companies that were getting closed down. Game companies that went away, like the Rifts and some of the other game companies.
Well, when we all started gaming in a group together, I didn't know anybody else that was gaming.
Yeah.
It was us. And when I would mention to people about us playing that kind of stuff, I would get the quizzical looks like, you're a nerd. You're a geek. What are you talking about? But now I'm seeing more... And maybe, it could just be, I'm going to just throw it out there. It could be that I'm a nerd myself and I raised someone who was in the nerd community but she plays into RPGs. I have nieces and nephews that play into RPGs. And so it seems to be growing. And I don't know if it's just in the nerd community. Who knows?
I think it's kind of getting out there. There's a lot of kids that play now that the quote unquote cool kids who wouldn't have played before.
Sure.
It was like, oh, hey, Gary on the football team's listening to The Cure now. That's weird. But, that happened too. But yeah, I kind of want to see where this stuff goes, because it widens the doorway into the entry of the role-playing games.
Well, and I hope from us talking about it, I hope that we get listeners that have not done RPGs before, but at least take an interest in it and look into this. And,
oh my God.
And you might be surprised that you have friends that are already doing this and you just don't know about it.
Yeah, because they don't want to get teased. So
right.
They're not saying anything about it.
And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I know as we sit here and talk, I know there are people that think, oh gosh, two nerds and they're playing the RPGs. They're playing the D&D.
Yes.
But it's a great outlet.
Oh, yeah.
Because whenever, all those years we played Shadowrun, when we played on Sunday night, I got to step into Primus's life and I got to be somebody different for an evening.
That's right.
I got to be in a different world. I got to be a place where normal day-to-day cares were gone.
Yeah.
And that's what I always appreciate about RPGs.
Completely out the window.
Yeah.
That's all we were worried about, is making sure we got something to eat while we were gaming.
Right.
That was it. And everything else went by the wayside. And it's beautiful and wonderful. And it's cheaper than going to a movie every week.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
It's cheaper than going to a movie every week if you're looking for escapism. It's cheaper than buying an album every week and, tuning in and turning out. And it's a social aspect. You get to do those things together. And you will develop rituals that only your group does. I think it's the fireside of the 20th and 21st century. It's sitting around a campfire telling stories, but everybody gets to get involved. So, yeah, I think it's beautiful. Some more things about Savage Worlds, circling back as we do. Some game worlds have the option of granting superhuman abilities. Characters usually with a magical, mystical, technological, psionic, racial, or mutant origin. They are ranked like edges with novice, seasoned, veteran, and heroic or legendary, and can be expanded by leveling up. And that is basically it for Savage Worlds, other than get out and play it. Pick up the digest version. Sit down, get you some pencils and paper out. You will find that it will be some of the happiest times of your life.
I couldn't disagree. I could not disagree. I do not disagree with you at all.
Thank you. Thank you. Get out and play it, kids.
Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about in multiple episodes now, it was a big part of my life. I miss our every week gaming
yeah.
session that we hardly ever missed.
Yeah.
So much fun. And as we've said before, the camaraderie between our gaming group. We've got five of us that have been basically best friends for
30 years.
30 years.
30 years.
And it's because of Shadowrun.
Yeah.
And it's because of RPGs. And these 5 people are people that I would literally do anything for.
Mm-hmm.
Any one of those 4 people, not counting me, any one of those 4 people could call me at 2:00 in the morning and say, "Hey, I got a problem. I need your help," and I will be there. And they've done it for me. I've had times.
A good friend will help you hide. A best friend will help you hide a body.
I remember at least 2 times. I called you once at 2:00 in the morning. I called Dawn once about 2:00 in the morning, and I'm going to throw a fine point on it. I'd been out drinking, and I was having a hard time in my life, and I was like, "Man, come to breakfast with me. I need a friend. I need someone." And there was no question. No question.
It was like, ooh, I can use a waffle.
Sure. And it all comes from the basis of we formed those friendships and those bonds through an RPG.
That's right.
You won't regret it. Go out there and do it.
You may have some starts and stops issues, but you will eventually get to the point where we got to start doing this again.
Yeah.
And just doing it. And we've brought some other people in too.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Johnny,
right?
Johnny, my neighbor, who I knew tertiarily, but had never met before, and
right. Well, Randy is another one because we had the core of you, me, Keith, and Dawn, and then Randy came along later, and then he got to be a part of that, and it's great times for me. I don't regret any time that we played these games. I don't regret any day that we started it because it just formed some unbreakable bonds.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
I agree. It's beautiful.
Great.
Well, that's about it. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. So with that, I guess we step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For this week, I got my information off encyclopedia.com, Film Daily, Wikipedia, World Religions and Spirituality Project, Britannica, Ranker, VoxSpace, and this is the story of the Order of the Solar Temple. So this is another dangerous cult that we're going to be talking about.
The Order of the Solar Temple? Okay.
I am going to say throughout this, I know it's terrible that I do this, but I'm not good with pronunciations on things. Even though I hear them, I'm going to forget them. There's a lot of French words or French stuff in here and French names, so I'm very sorry about that. I don't mean to offend anybody, but here we go. The Solar Temple, it was one of a number of groups that came out of France and neighboring countries, going back to 1804. They traced their authority to the lineage of the Grand Masters of the Order of the Temple. That was a medieval order of knights that was eventually suppressed by papal command at the beginning of the 14th century.
So like the Templars and things like that.
Yes, okay. The Knights Templars. Yes, this is all coming out of those groups. In 1804, there was a Parisian physician, Bernard Raymond Fabre Palaprat. There's my first one.
Fabre Palaprat.
There you go. He claimed he was the successor to a secret line of the Templar Grand Masters, and he kept the order alive throughout the years since its disappearance from public view. Following his death, the order splintered into many factions, some of which started to believe in the imminent end of the world. Yeah, the apocalypse, of course. Some of the modern splinters of this was the renewed Order of the Temple that was founded around 1970 by Julian Origas, who was a supposed former Gestapo agent.
Oh, goodness.
The Solar Temple itself was founded in Switzerland in 1984, and here's the next one, as the Order International Chevaleresque Tradition Solare by Luc Jouret and Joseph D. Mambro.
I'm not even going to try.
Right. No, you can look it up later. Luke himself was born in the Belgian Congo, but as a youth, his parents returned to Belgium, and he attended the Free University of Brussels.
They probably had to.
Oh, possibly. He attended the Free University of Brussels, and he became a physician. He also went into the army, and after a very short time, he took training as a homeopathic physician, and he started an established practice in France. He would later give up medicine in favor of spiritualism and homeopathy. Yeah. In the early 1980s, he became a very popular speaker on alternative medicine in French-speaking Europe and Quebec. And then in his travels, he came into contact with Joseph D. Mambro, which we mentioned earlier. Joseph himself was a French jeweler and a watchmaker. And he, as a young man, he joined the ancient and mystical order of the Rosicrucians, which is AMORC is their...
The Rosicrucians. Yeah.
Yes.
They have, they study like ley lines and rose lines and stuff like that.
Oh, I didn't find that. I didn't dive into them. In 1973, he founded the first of several successive organizations, the Center for the Preparation of the New Age in Annemasse, French. Annemasse, France. French fries, French dressing. Joseph originally was raised Catholic, and he went to church every Sunday until he started practicing occultism in his 20s. Joseph, who knew this Julian Origas, he introduced Luke to him, and together they joined the Renewed Order of the Temple, or ORT. Julian would die in 1983, and Luke became the Grand Master of the ORT. However, within a year, Luke was forced out of the group, but he took half of its members with him, so he's starting to get a following together.
He branched his own cult off of a cult.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what they started for the first successor group was the Golden Way Foundation. They started that in Geneva, Switzerland, and that hosted Luke for some of his lectures. And it was here that Joseph and Luke came up with a plan. They founded the Solar Temple as a secret order, and their members were drawn from affiliates of the Amanta and Arcadia clubs, which were both founded by Luke and the Golden Way Foundation. Luke and Joseph developed the cult by combining their own experiences with various other cults they had come in contact with. So they're starting to take all the different principles for different cults and kind of molding them in and whatnot. Joseph did take a backstage role and allow Luke to put on the show. I find that interesting because for those of you who are not overly familiar with the Bible, just to say we're kind of a correlation, I bet you they kind of took a little bit of this from. Moses was not a great speaker. His brother was, and I'm losing, is it Aaron?
Aaron. The first Kohanim.
He did most of the speaking for Moses. And so you see here, Joseph was not really a good speaker, and he had Luke do it. So it's almost like you're seeing some correlations there, which a lot of cults will do. They'll found a lot of things to the Bible. The Solar Temple members did see themselves as assisting in the arrival of the coming New Age. Remember that from the 80s, the New Agers. They did practice various meditative and occult disciplines, and they participated in elaborate rituals to achieve an enlightened state of consciousness. So they took stuff from the Knights of the Templar. They had the white robes with the red crosses on them. They did very elaborate ritual ceremonies. The aims of the Order of the Solar Temple included establishing correct notions of authority and power in the world, an affirmation of the primacy of the spiritual over the temporal, establishing the right order over the world. Yeah, I bet that's a little anti-Semitic. A little bit. Assisting humanity through a great, quote, transition. Preparing for the second coming of Christ as a solar God King, and furthering a unification of all Christian churches in Islam. The group reportedly drew some inspirations for its teachings from British occultist Aleister Crowley, who headed the Order of the Eastern Temple from 1923 until his death in 1947. And the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was a 19th century order Crowley belonged to briefly. Both occults had a grade system somewhat similar to what the Solar Temple would do. The rituals would begin with Joseph and would begin with a guided meditation where participants would visualize luminous particles which flowed in and out of their bodies that was purifying, regenerating. They were seeing these. I want to point that out. They were actually seeing these luminous particles flowing in and out of their bodies. Okay?
Well,
No. They were seeing them.
I understand that, guided meditation too. You get stuff like that supposedly. I don't necessarily think the guided meditation part is necessarily a bad thing, but I bet you're about to get to some bad things.
Yeah. The stuff they were seeing was fake. They were projections.
You're kidding me.
That's what I'm telling you. They were literally seeing this stuff. It wasn't just visions through meditation or even one of those where like, oh yes, master, pastor, leader, whatever you want to say. Oh, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the particles. No, they were seeing them. So, yeah. During the rituals, they also had the recitation of the popular Great Invocation that originated in the Alice Bailey's Arcane School and was very much an integral part of their rituals. Members also believed that the group would produce a next generation of exceptional children, including 9 cosmic children who would initiate the New Age. They also believed the Earth would face a worldwide catastrophe in the mid-1990s. To this end, group members listened to Joseph's identification with them and famous people in previous incarnations and in his pairing with them in cosmic marriages. How many cults do you read about where there's these cosmic marriages or arranged marriages or everybody only marries the leader? Joseph,
somebody wants a harem.
Pretty much most of them, yeah. Joseph was in charge of the cult's rituals and ceremonies. He led prayers and guided members through the meditation sessions. And in order to emphasize his importance to the cult and his own status as holy, he told members that his son was conceived through theogamy or marriage with the gods. Never heard of that one before, but here we go. He did state that his daughter was conceived immaculately, like Mary's pregnancy to Jesus Christ. Luke claimed in front of elite members of the cult that in a previous life he was a member of the Knights Templar, again, where they're pulling a lot of their information from. He also told them that he was the third incarnation of Jesus Christ.
Who was the second?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
Using the authority that this gave him, Luke would choose female members of the cult to engage with sexually with before ceremonies. Of course.
Absolutely.
This happens in cults all the time. He claimed that by doing this, it gave him the spiritual strength to do his holy duties. He and Joseph were also responsible for the breaking up of several marriages, demanding that none of the pairs was cosmically compatible, while he and Joseph were engaged in sexual encounters with the recently single wives' clubs on the side. There were Solar Temple lodges, because they called them lodges, in Morin Heights, Saint Anne de la Parade, Quebec, as well as Australia, Switzerland, Martinique, and other countries. The Order of the Solar Temple combined...
Mostly Francophone.
Yes.
Well, except for Australia.
Yes. Yeah. The Order of the Solar Temple combined evangelical Christian doctrine with occult Freemasonry, so they're now taken from the Freemasons as well. Another of their main goals was to recreate the 14th century Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and the Templar because of a belief that the apocalypse was near. So now they're drawing in more of that. Its members believe that there is inherent merit in the social structure of that period and that in the climate of social discord, the principle of the order will bring harmony and control.
The 14th century. Mm-hmm. So the 1300s. Mm-hmm. The time of the Black Death. Uh-huh. Okay. I'm with you so far.
Ultimately, members of the order believe that once the end of the world comes, they will be transported to a planet orbiting the star Sirius in order to live out an afterlife.
Are you serious?
I am serious. To be granted this privilege, one had to be a devout member. There were many fees required, and this allowed Luke and Joseph to live a very lavish lifestyle. One of their core beliefs is about the imminent end of the world, that it will mark the second coming of Jesus Christ. This is where I get a little confused. So we had the first coming, then it's going to mark the second coming, but Luke is the third.
Who is the second?
Jesus Christ. So, yeah. Again, their special title for Jesus was Solar God King, and Luke would give lectures about the catastrophic upheavals that were threatening the continued existence of our planet. He also lectured indicating at the possibility of members being able to leave their earthly bodies and meeting once again through the death voyages that would bring them to the star Sirius. So a lot like the Heaven's Gate cult, that said they were going to leave on a ship.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
According to Luke, the world would meet its end due to the cataclysmic environmental harm that humans bring on the planet.
He wasn't that far off.
No, that's true. And only a few people, members of the cult, would have the privilege to leave the planet and reach Sirius, transitioning through fire. Luke was very interested in attractive, wealthy, and influential members, and it was reputed that several affluent Europeans were secret members of the group. There's a rumor. I am going to state heavily, this is a rumor. There's a rumor that Princess Grace was a part of this cult at one point.
Oh.
So, according to the literature of the order, the central authority was the Synarchy of the Temple, whose membership was secret. This is going to sound awfully familiar to you. Its top 33 members were known as the Elder Brothers of the Rosy Cross and were headquartered in Zurich. Very Freemason.
Yes. Well, and the people who did the Rosicrucians who were about the rose lines, and they get into a lot of the Holy Grail is tied in with that too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. The Council of the Order formed lodges, as I talked about. That's what their temples were called, and they were run by a regional commander and 3 elders. Progression in the order was by levels and grades, with 3 grades per level, the levels being the Brothers of Parvis, the Knights of the Alliance, and the Brothers of the Ancient Times in ascending order.
At a cost, I'm sure.
Oh, too. Yeah. Very expensive. There were many organizations associated with the order, all of which offered the teachings of Luke both to the general public and privately to order members. Over 6 years, the Order of the Solar Temple gained over 400 members and delineated itself into a 3-part structure. The lowest, the Amanta Club, was designed for members who spread the cult's message to new people. These ambassadors, they gave lectures around the world proselytizing the group's doctrine. The next level up, the Arcadia Club, consisted of members who were allowed to know a bit more of the cult's secrets and were promised the reward of coming closer to a, quote, higher consciousness. One had to be hand-selected to reach this level by an elder. The highest circle of the cult was called the International Knighthood Organization, and reaching this level involved secret initiation rituals, and its member had access to publications that others did not.
It's like the Scientologists, when they finally hear about Xenu, they get pissed off and leave.
Right. Well, but they can't leave. God, that's a whole nother episode of Scientology. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a lot like that. Again, a lot of cults are like this too. This is very common because what they're doing is they're promoting you into these higher levels, and they're telling you you're special. They're telling you you've got something that somebody else doesn't. And they're preying on these people. They're preying on vulnerable people.
The idea of completing a task, too, kind of plays into it, too. So if you keep going, eventually you'll get this information. I guarantee you that's at least some of it.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Members were initiated each stage of advancement in ceremonies, which included expensive purchases, jewelry, costume, regalia, and the payment of initiation fees. During ceremonies, members wore crusader-type robes, as I talked about before, and were to hold in awe a sword, which Joseph said was an authentic Templar artifact given to him 1,000 years ago in a previous life. And of course, no cult is complete without an inner circle. For the Order of the Solar Temple, this was called the Synarchy of the Temple, consists of the cult's largest donors and its leaders, all of whom referred themselves as Elder Brothers of the Rosy Cross. The elders led lodges, as I talked about before, it's really that's really cult speak for a church. And it was complete with their own altars, robes, and symbolic instruments, and they stashed away the majority of the funds from members' fees. By the 1980s, the order had reached a peak of 442 members. However, in the early 90s, it began to lose members, a number of whom demanded a return of their money that they had contributed to the order. So they're starting to get disillusioned. Uh-oh. Members and leadership were becoming pessimistic because there was no signs of the coming of the New Age or the end of the world. Also happens in a lot of cults. Joseph's own son, Eli, he became a skeptic of the order. He's the one who found evidence of the spiritual visions being fabricated by projectors and began to speak out about the cult's falsity. Soon other members began to investigate the cults for themselves, and wow, shocking, they started to notice how lavishly Joseph and Luke were living as many other followers left the order. Joseph got a little angry at this, and especially about Eli, and he determined that they would lose more followers if drastic measures were not taken quickly. In order to cinch the belief of wavering followers, the order's procedures started to become more fanatical. In 1994, Tony and Nikki Dutoit, I think is probably how it's pronounced.
Dutoit, yeah, that sounds right.
They had a son who they named Christopher Emmanuel, and this pissed Joseph off. Because one of the beliefs of the order was that a sign of the end of the world was the birth of a godchild, Emmanuel. Joseph had already given one of his own children the title of Emmanuel in 1982 and was assigned a messianic role in the New Age. And he had furthermore led order followers to believe that she was the cosmic child. So in October of 1994, Joseph ordered the execution of 3-month-old Emmanuel and his parents. Joseph told order members that Emmanuel was the Antichrist and that was described in the Bible and was born into the order to prevent Joseph from his spiritual destiny. The entire family was stabbed repeatedly with wooden stakes and killed. Tony was stabbed 50 times, Nikki 8, and the baby 6.
With wooden stakes?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, I hope these people go down.
Well, the 2 assailants then committed suicide in the Solar Temple Lodge in Morin Heights. Soon after this, it was declared that the apocalypse was nearer than ever and ecological collapse was imminent. Luke and Joseph told order members that it was necessary that they transport themselves ahead of the time to get an early start on inhabiting Sirius. Luke and Joseph convinced multiple members to poison themselves so they could reach the afterlife in Sirius. Those who refused the poison were forced into the afterlife. Swiss officials later found many members shot in the head or asphyxiated with plastic bags in the charred remains of the cult village after it burnt to the ground.
Because they go through by fire. So immolation has to be part of this issue.
Yep. Eli, Joseph's son, his body was found amongst the victims, so he was either denied from leaving the cult or he never fully left. Sometime after that, Joseph, Luke, and 12 followers performed a ritual Last Supper where Joseph played the part of Jesus. There were mass suicides and murders that were conducted at Chéry and Salvan, which were 2 villages in western Switzerland, and at Morin Heights. 15 Inner Circle members committed suicide by poison, 30 were killed by bullets or smothering, and 8 others were killed by other means. Joseph and Luke were among those who committed suicide. Joseph's cosmic child was also found among the dead. Many of the victims were found in a secret underground chapel lined with mirrors and other of Templar symbolism. The bodies were dressed in the order's ceremonial robes and were in a circle, feet together, head outward, most with plastic bags tied over their head, and each had been shot in the head. The plastic bags themselves may have been a symbolism for the ecological disaster that would befall the human race after the order members moved on to Sirius. It's also possible that the bags were part of the order rituals and that members would have voluntarily worn them without being placed under duress. There was also evidence that many of the victims were drugged before they were shot. There were other victims found in 3 ski chalets with several dead children all lying together. This tragedy was discovered when officers rushed to the site to fight the fires that had been ignited by remote control devices. There were farewell letters left by the believers stated they believed they were leaving to escape the hypocrisies and oppression of this world. And there was also a tape discovered that revealed the following conversation between Joseph and Luke. Joseph said, "People have beaten us to the punch, you know." Luke said, "Well, yeah, Waco beat us to the punch." Joseph said, "In my opinion, we should have gone 6 months before them. What we'll do will even be more spectacular." Amongst the dead found in Switzerland was a mayor, a journalist, a civil servant, and a sales manager. Most of the cult members were young people and people who were overly susceptible. And Solar Temple members were typically middle-aged and middle-class Swiss and Canadian citizens. Records seized by the Quebec police showed that some members had personally donated over 1 million Canadian to Joseph.
Oh, that's a lot.
All of the suicide murders and attempts occurred around the dates of the equinoxes and the solstice, and probably in some relation to the belief of their group. On December 23rd, 1995, 16 more bodies of other order members were discovered in a star formation at the Vercors Mountains of France. It was found later that 2 of them shot the others and then committed suicide by firearm and burning to death. One of the dead actually included Olympian Edith Bonlieu, who had competed in the women's downhill in the 1956 Winter Olympics. On the morning of March 23rd, 1997, 5 members of the cult took their own lives at Saint Casimir, Quebec. There was a small house that erupted in flames, leaving behind 5 charred bodies for police to pull from the rubble. 3 teenagers, aged 13, 14, and 16, who were children of one of the couples that died in the fire, were discovered in a shed behind the house, but heavily drugged. Those 3 were able to attest to the victims' willingness to die so that they could ascend. Their parents had drugged them and wanted the teenagers to commit suicide among them. However, they negotiated for their lives out and they managed to escape.
Poor kids.
The Solar Temple deaths were a very unique event for the European Templar and occult community. It had been tied to several other violent events, including small new spiritual religious groups, such as the murders committed by the leaders of the AUM Shinriko Buddhists in Japan. And, And
they used ricin poisoning.
Yes. And the suicides of 39 members of Heaven's Gate, as we talked about, who was a American UFO contactee group. In France and Belgium, it led to a backlash against minority religions that continue to the present. The government of Switzerland carried out an extensive investigation of the deaths and concluded that it had all been the outcome of the group's theological choices. By the end of it all, 74 Solar Temple members had died either by murder or suicide. The order is still active today and has several hundred active members. In the opinion of a few experts in the case, the signature mass suicides of the Order of the Solar Temple are not yet over, suggesting that there are more members of the cult living presently who might follow in the footsteps of their prior leaders. And that's the story of the Order of the Solar Temple.
Wow, that was a wild ride.
Another dangerous cult.
Yep.
I love studying about these, and this is again, I kind of understand this a little bit better since I've been really, really seriously studying into this. Is that they prey on vulnerable people? That, as we've said in episodes before, come this way, come to me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show you a better life. Your life now is terrible. Come with me, and everything will be greater. Give me all this money and let me take your cares away from the world. So they all seem to be the same. They, one way or another, they all come to the same ends. They all come to the same conclusions. And they prey on susceptible, helpless people. It's pretty sad, to be honest.
Very, very, very sad.
So thanks for sitting with me through that one.
Sure. Thanks for the information.
Absolutely.
As always. Absolutely. A little light, little dark.
A little light, a little dark. That'll take us to the end of this episode week. As always, you can find us on our website, nerderyandmurdery.com. There you can find links to our social media as well as our contact info. You can contact us, let us know things you want to hear, things you would like to hear us improve. You can even write us and tell us you think we suck, whatever.
That's right.
We'll take that. Please do remember, again, to leave us ratings wherever you can. Leave your 5-star rating at iTunes, as well as your rating. Please do leave a review because we really do appreciate reading those. We love all of our listeners, and it really, really helps us. It's completely free to leave a review, so please take a moment to do that. If you wish to join our Patreon and get episodes early, then you can find that also on our website. There are going to be some more spiffs as we get into 2022.
Yes.
So be on the lookout for that. You look like you had something.
Yeah, I was going to say, yes, some other spiffs that we've been kind of kicking around, some ideas.
Yeah. So there will definitely be some new stuff. So please consider being a patron. Please and thank you.
Please and thank you.
And also on our website, you can find our merchandise, where if you want to get your Nerdery and Murdery logo merchandise and go out and show your fandom, we do definitely appreciate that. But with that...
And it looks good.
Oh, yes.
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery.
Cue the music.